Hello, and welcome to Real Watcher's newest show, Movie Club. I'm your host, Garrett.
And I'm Kevin.
Movie Club is a show where we pick a new movie every week and discuss it just like a book club. On today's show, we're covering the sci-fi action thriller Jurassic Park. Our thoughts and more coming up on Movie Club. Released in 1993, Jurassic Park was directed by Steven Spielberg and stars Sam Neill, Laura Dern, and Jeff Goldblum. Two paleontologists and other experts are touring an almost complete theme park where dinosaurs have been cloned back to life. When a power failure hits the island, they must now survive as the park's residents are on the loose. Jurassic Park won the 3 Oscars it was nominated for, including Best Sound Effects Editing, and Best Visual Effects. It's currently number 144 on IMDb's Top 250 and has a 4.1 out of 5 on Letterboxd. Before we dive into our thoughts of this movie, and we're going to have some thoughts, we do want to issue a spoiler warning for the film. We will be discussing plot points, twists, revelations, and more on the show. If you haven't seen the film yet, we'd recommend watching it and then coming back here to kind of get more engaged with the conversation. Stay tuned to the end of the show, though, for the next week's film so that you can watch it before the show comes out and be up to date, just like we are. So now let's go ahead and talk Jurassic Park. Kevin, what's your history with this movie? Have you seen it before this? Was it? Do you have a history with it? What's going on with Jurassic Park and you?
I have seen it before. I've seen it a couple of times, actually. This is one of my most rewatched movies just because of how good it is. So I say I have a lot of experience watching this movie.
Gotcha. Yeah, I personally have a history of this as well, too. This was not the first movie I watched by any means. It's probably not the good film to watch if you're a young child. But it was the first movie that I watched that actually got me interested in the process of how movies are made. So this was the first movie I remember watching, like, the behind the scenes, the featurettes, how it was made, how the visual effects were done, and kind of had that knowledge when I was like 12, 13. So like that it was very formative in how I kind of approached film. And as such, I have a real big soft spot for this movie, and it's just also a great film too. So it kind of helps when it's a good film and you have good memories of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, especially since what year was it done in?
1993 was when this was
93,
released.
and you see those visual effects on some of those dinosaurs, you're like, okay.
Yeah. Everything having to do with the T-Rex paddock at night during the storm still holds up to this day.
Yep.
There's only one moment I can think of where the visual effects actually don't really age well, and it's the brachiosaur sequence when they first see it. Like there's one moment where the leg looks a little computery, but I mean, other than that, it holds up surprisingly well. And I mean, you can't doubt.
And
Steven Spielberg.
The greatest part about this movie, sometimes you can't tell which dinosaurs are CG and which dinosaurs are practical, because they use a lot of practical dinosaur realistics in this as well. So that's what I love about movies, when they can kind of blend them, and you kind of have to think, is it real, or did a computer do this? And that's what makes movies like superb. That's what
makes visual effects magical, for sure. And I think this movie is really key at kind of cementing that magic in the viewer's conscious and their minds. So it is a little bit, if you've seen the film enough times and you've seen the behind the scenes enough, you know that every time you don't see a dinosaur's legs, it's pretty much a practical one. If they do have to show it walking, it's most likely a visual effect. But I mean, I hate to ruin the magic for you, but that is unfortunately how you can tell.
But to me, that's still magic. Like when you
100%.
Even after you saying that, if someone goes back there and rewatches this, and they'll be like, "Wow, they did that to a perfect T," and that's what makes movie magic to me.
Yeah, when they've nailed it and it continues to nail it, it's truly something magical. So obviously, the story for this film, a lot of people know what happens in this movie, right? You got your experts and you got your scientists coming in. They're investigating the park, seeing, oh, this works, this doesn't, whatever. Obviously, have you read the original book that this is based off of, or have you only seen the movie?
I've only seen the movie.
Gotcha. The book dives a little bit deeper into some of the genetic details, and a couple other characters end up dying, which is interesting. In the book, I believe the lawyer doesn't die, if I'm remembering correctly. I know Hammond dies in the book, and everyone was pretty sure that Malcolm died in the book, and then somehow magically he came back for the second book. So no one really knows what happened there. But as far as the story goes, I think that this film is paced wonderfully. I really don't feel like there's a dead moment, and even the moments that are more boring, or not, that's a bad word to say, but like that are more flat, I would say, in terms of action or like intrigue, there's still a lot going on to help build that world out. Like, you're getting details that make Jurassic Park seem real.
Well, I would say like a flat moment in the movie is when Samuel L. Jackson and the other guy are in like the computer room putting him on the tour. Even though that's a slow point in the movie, it's still really important to what it comes out to be. So that everything has a little spot in this movie to make the ending what it can be.
Yeah, everything has a purpose. Everything is, like this happens, which therefore this, but this therefore it's I forget, it's the writers of South Park that have that famous thing where you don't want and then in your script. You want buts and therefore. So like, this happens, but then this happens, or this happens, therefore this happens, and everything feels connected in this movie, and everything kind of feels well thought out and well paced and well written. Obviously, it's based off of
and nothing seems to be out of place. Like, why was that there? Like, you didn't have to question that.
Yeah, like a lot of later films have that in the franchise. Unfortunately, I mean, you get a lot of like, especially Fallen Kingdom. Like, why did that take place in a house? But that aside, we're here to talk the original. But I'm interested to see whether or not you actually have any criticisms about this movie, and anything that you think kind of doesn't quite hit the levels that are kind of maintained for it. For me, I have one thing that's always bugged me about this movie, but I'm interested to see what you think.
Only thing, I like sciencey stuff, so I wanted them to go a little bit more into like the splicing of the DNA and like how they actually made them. You just go into the lab and poof, they're there. So like something like that would have been, but that's such a nitpick of a big movie. So,
and again, if you're really looking for the scientific stuff, the book is, I think, really going to scratch that itch for you. It's not too long of a book. I would highly recommend you read it if you like the movie. Especially the second book. The second book, I feel like, is a little bit better story-wise than the second movie is. For me, though, the thing that I have always nitpicked in this movie, and maybe it's just me, I find the children so annoying in this movie. I mean, I find children annoying pretty much everywhere, but like, this movie specifically, Lex, the girl, does nothing except for scream or yell for most of this movie. And like the flashlight in the car, really, I get that it's building tension and it does it beautifully, but like, her character feels so one note up until she gets a chance to actually do something in the end with the security gate turning back on and the hacking, and then Tim is just, I mean, come on, he's just pestering. He's pestering Dr. Grant, sure, and like, to be fair, they are annoying, at least again to me personally, but they serve a purpose, right? Like, Dr. Sattler's been talking with Dr. Grant the entire time about having kids potentially, and why don't you like kids, whatever, and then they start to grow on them by the end of the movie, and it serves a purpose. I don't know if that plot's there in the book. Again, it's been a while since I've read the book, but they definitely feel like they kind of played up that angle a little bit here. Also, I know a lot of people have called this out online. The relationship between Dr. Grant and Dr. Sattler is a little weird, because he's clearly older than she is. Yeah, by quite an amount. But yeah, I don't know. Felt like a good place to drop that little thing in there.
I don't see the kids being annoying. Yes, do they scream a lot? Yes, but I put myself as a kid when this happens. Would I have any words to say? No, I'd just be screaming my head off if this happened. But I would also like them because what's the little kid, the boy's name?
Tim?
Tim? Wasn't he like really big into Dr. Grant and stuff like that?
Well, he was just big into dinosaurs, and he is, he's talking to him about his book, and he's like, oh, well, this other guy had this bigger book,
But I would like for him to, the kid, to talk about dinosaurs more, make him more intelligent and not just like a little kid, because then maybe they could have played off of that, him coming back into 2 as like a paleontologist or something like that, so he can like reclaim. But I mean, the girl, yeah, she's the bigger sister, so they have to have like that, oh, I'm gonna protect my little brother and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't really remember any lines from these kids. That's the problem.
I mean, there's the moments like there's the kitchen with the raptors. I mean, that's iconic, but like that's not lines. It's not like anything they're doing to really, or like, and it's just they don't really feel like they have an impact for sure. But like it just with the viewer, it's kind of like, okay, they were there. It's one of the things that I would actually say that Jurassic World does better. The brothers in that movie, while they're not necessarily like the most memorable characters, I feel like their relationship is so much better in that movie. And that maybe because they're alone and they have to actually work together as opposed to depending on an adult. It would have been way different, I think, if Chris Pratt was there and was guiding them through.
Oh, but I don't think their acting would have been at their best if Chris was there. I think when they were in the sphere by themselves, they're basically like, here, act on yourselves pretty much, which is nice to see.
Yeah, and especially when they're alone in the old visitor center and they have to like work together to get the car running and everything. Yeah, it honestly, if that kind of writing had been given to these kids in this movie, I think it would have been a little bit better and more memorable. But this is also a product of its time, 1993. You're not necessarily getting, the best written female characters or even child characters at this point. I mean, to be fair though, Dr. Sattler, for a female character in the 90s, she's pretty badass, and she's given some good writing. But she had that in the book too. So
she knows how to look for poop and stick her hand in it too.
Yeah. And she doesn't take shit from nobody.
Nope.
I love how a lot of later versions of this film include there's the part where they're in the bunker and Hammond is saying, oh, I should be the one that goes and does it because I'm and you're and she makes some remark about how like sexism and survival situations. And I never remembered that scene like up until I watched it recently. And I was like, did they just start putting that in? Because I thought it was a deleted scene, but I guess it's been in the movie the whole time. And I just never remembered that moment. So one of the most memorable parts of this movie really for me are its performances. I love Sam Neill in this movie. Obviously, come on, Jeff Goldblum as Ian Malcolm is an icon. That man lying on that table with the shirt open so vividly is just I need that pop figure is what I need.
Oh my gosh.
But I mean, even like, one of the more understated ones that I don't feel like gets enough attention is Richard Attenborough as Dr. Hammond, or John Hammond, excuse me. Like he really plays like in the book, the character is a lot less sympathetic. And I think in the movie, he's played much more sympathetically and someone who is genuinely trying to do something wonderful and magical for the people that are going there. And in all honesty, I guess kind of back to the story point, this park works. It's literally just Nedry's fault.
Yeah, it is. It's like he wanted to build a Disneyland when Disneyland was already built. So what can you build? Well, dinosaurs. So he was trying to just do his own thing because somebody else already did what he wanted to do. And it's hard to go off of original ideas like that because you can't just make another Disneyland. It's going to be too similar and people don't want to go to it. So how can he be different? So dinosaurs. Yeah.
That's pretty. We don't have that. So that if we had that, that would be pretty insane. And like, a lot of people always say, oh, there's 6 movies now and why you shouldn't bring dinosaurs back. It's like, no, the first movie shows you it would work. Human greed is what gets in the way. It's not the dinosaurs themselves. Dinosaurs are just animals. But like when the human greed gets in the way and corporate espionage, and that's when it's annoying. Speaking of, Dennis Nedry is, seeing, I always forget his character's name on Seinfeld. Seeing him in this movie it's always so funny to me. It's such a great inclusion. Samuel L. Jackson as well. Across the board, performances in this movie are great.
Yeah, I mean, and think of him as not being like your typical villain. He's a nerd, pretty much, and wanting to get money out of everything. So he was like, okay, I'll take it down. Like, this is what I have. So it was kind of cool because the first time I watched it, I didn't think he was going to be the villain. I thought just something was going to happen with the park and then it shuts down. And then he happens. And I'm like, oh, wait, but that's good because he knows the ins and outs of the park and everything like that. So it makes him the best villain for this movie.
Yeah, I mean, he's really not even a villain for that long, right? I mean, the true, you could say the true villains are like the T-Rex and the Velociraptors and stuff, but he's the catalyst. He's the one that gets everything moving, and I think a lot of people have that false memory that the storm is what causes everything, and no, they were designed to weather a storm. They had systems in place. They were getting people off the island. Everything was working just fine until Nedry screwed it all up. And I think that's a false memory that a lot of people have, that this, in a perfect world, this could work. But, hey, people want their money. So obviously this is one of those movies, like Spielberg has this very typical thing where it was really started with Jaws. And I know you love Jaws, and you've at least seen it before. So like, that he knows when to keep those reveals to the right moment. And I think, like, especially like the reveal of the Brachiosaur in this film comes at the right moment, and the tension that leads up to the T-Rex paddock escape is brilliantly done. And it kind of feels like it won't hit a fever pitch until then. And really, upon first viewing of the film, or for those who are more anxious, I guess, than the rest of us, that tension does not let up until they leave the island.
Yeah.
And I think that's just so brilliantly paced and so brilliantly done. And again, it's just a Spielberg trademark at this point. Like, he's the master of
it. I like when him not showing the dinosaurs right away, when he's looking up, he's getting up out of his squatting position and stuff like that and being amazed. He takes it all in first, and then you get to see what he sees. So it's like, is it this amazing that the director's not even showing us what's happening, which is really cool.
Right.
So
it's building the anticipation. Right. Like, Grant's, I mean, if you watch that sequence, and maybe I'll play a clip of it here if I can find it. The driver of the Jeep that they're in sees it first, and he just kind of puts his hands on the wheel and just like, another day in the park. But then Grant sees it. And then I believe you see Malcolm see it. And obviously Sattler is concerned with the plant. Oh, I haven't seen this since the Cretaceous period. Well, I haven't seen it. She's never seen it before. Hasn't existed since the Cretaceous period. And then he turns her head, that kind of iconic, like, get your head over here. Yeah. And then it's that slow pan up as she moves up, and kind of that zoom in, or not the zoom in, the close shot of Grant's face before the music swells, and it's beautifully done. And I hate to use this kind of a term. It's not, hey, if you're under 18, close your ears for a second, right? But it's kind of like how the band Tool does their music, right? It's that perfect kind of climax, right? It's building and building and building to that release, that cathartic release, and that it's a beautiful thing. So
yeah, and really, but then you have your tense moments that are beautiful as well, with the T-Rex coming out of I'm going to say his cage, but his cage, the paddock, yeah, and that's a big climax too, but it's for a different emotion, which is he catches it to a T, which every movie needs to have a couple emotions that make you feel like scared, in awe, and anything else that even loving would be, like at the end when everybody is together again, and it just creates a whole circle. But he puts them in this movie, and you don't even realize it until you like watch it again and be like, oh wait, there's like steps that he takes
Yeah.
to get to this point, which is it's just great directing.
And again, like when it comes to those tension scenes, specifically the T-Rex paddock, right? He's already put that expectation in your head. You know the power's out.
Mhm.
Like Nedry has touched the gates and he's opened them, but you forget that. Like you're in the same boat as the characters when they pull up to the paddock and they're stopped there, and then the T-Rex puts its hand on the thing and tests it, and you're like, wait, the power's off. But you already know that. So like it's just brilliant in the way that it does it. It's very similar, or I guess not similar, but Edgar Wright has really taken this. The director of Hot Fuzz, Shaun of the Dead, and World's End, where he shows you things that are happened earlier in the movie, and then they come back later. So like you already like know that thing exists, but like it's just, again, it's so brilliantly done. You know.
Yeah, and you kind of forget about it while you're watching it, and then you go, it's like one of those aha moments, like, oh my gosh, they already said this,
but you don't want it to happen. It's the opposite of an aha when you're like, oh no.
Yeah, exactly.
So that being said, obviously you and I, it's been linked on our screens the whole time. We have our Letterboxd. Kevin, what do you think? What's your final thoughts? Like, Jurassic Park. What did you give it as a score on the platform?
On Letterboxd, I gave it a 5 out of 5, and I liked it. I have the Spielberg version of it here, so that means a lot. If I buy a movie, that means I enjoyed it. I will be watching it over and over again. And yeah, I mean, it's just, it's a good like movie to get somebody into kind of like horror-ish thriller movie. If they're little kids, like 9 years old, oh, you want to see dinosaurs come to real life? Look at this. But it's not like in their face, like them coming at them and stuff like that, and then they can jump onto something else that's similar to that. It's a good stepping stone for little ones, I feel like.
I mean, I don't know if I would say it depends on the age. I don't know if I would show it to like under 10 years old. I would definitely make sure that whoever you're showing it to can take it, because it is scary. It's got scary elements to it. It's definitely a thriller. It's suspenseful. So you want to make sure, obviously, if you're showing it to someone who's younger, that they're going to be able to withstand it. But I feel like there's other movies that I feel like would be better introductions into scarier films. But I can see, like, I think where you're coming from, like the level of scariness is probably a good intro. I can definitely see that.
Well, and even for people who want to get into like movie reviews or movie critics, this is a great one to go off of, because it shows you how to make a movie pretty much, and how to not have peaks and valleys. It's steadily going up, and then the movie ends. It never comes down. Yeah,
it's a consistent, like it's a snowball rolling down the hill, right? It just picks up steam before the end. As far as myself on Letterboxd, I gave the film a 95 out of 100, which according to my scale gives it a 4.5 out of 5. Since this is the first episode, a 5-star is only attained by a perfect movie, 100 out of 100. So this is not saying the movie is like majorly flawed in any way, but I did give it a 95 out of 100. My kind of official final thoughts: but Jurassic Park's magic still breathes life into audiences over 30 years later. Its visual effects, memorable characters, and incredible pacing are only slightly let down by some annoying child characters, in my opinion. Again, and that's the biggest thing, right? These are our opinions. We're not saying that this is like the go-to, we have the only opinions. We're at the top of the mountain. You need to listen to us. That's not what we're saying at all. I mean, obviously, you should watch the movie and formulate your own opinion. So, as with every movie.
And that's why we have movies, to formulate our own opinions. And if you need to criticize on something, don't say it at all. It's not worth it.
Well, I mean, obviously, if you have a criticism, you should talk about it and you should explore it. But don't say that people have the wrong opinion, because again, opinions are opinions. All right, so the question now falls to you. What do you think of Jurassic Park? Go ahead and leave your thoughts in the comments section below, and remember to be respectful of one another. Next week, we'll be covering the classic sci-fi adventure film Back to the Future. Make sure to watch the film before next week so that you aren't spoiled when we talk about it. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to us here on YouTube. We're also on social media everywhere with the name @RealWatchers. That is with 2 E's. And we look forward to seeing you on every video we have coming next. And until then, keep your eyes on the screen.